you read in the newspapers or you hear on the way that, of course, there will have been, people would have been prepared for this.
What happens when the most disciplined woman in the monarchy quietly blocks the queen from shaping the future king's coronation? Not a rumor, not a tabloid whisper, a calculated move. And this time, it wasn't done with noise, it was done with silence. Behind the gilded gates and polished smiles, a quiet earthquake began to shake the foundation of the royal family. Princess Anne, the immovable pillar of duty, the woman who has never flinched in the face of scandal, reportedly drew a line so sharp that even senior palace insiders were left stunned. Queen Camilla, the queen consort, was excluded from the earliest and most crucial meetings regarding Prince William's future coronation. No announcement, no confrontation, just absence. Strategic, deliberate absence. Inside palace corridors, where power is measured in seating charts and invitation lists, this was not a scheduling oversight. It was a message. For weeks, confidential planning documents circulated among William's closest advisors. Private strategy briefings were scheduled. Foundation decisions about the tone, symbolism, and direction of the next reign were quietly shaped. But Camilla's name never appeared on a single briefing list, not once. Every document, every discussion, every early framework stayed locked within a controlled inner circle, an inner circle aligned with William and guided by Anne. Camilla didn't discover this through a formal explanation. She found out accidentally. A missing memo, a calendar entry that never arrived, staff confusion, questions that led to silence. And in royal politics, silence screams. At Clarence House, shock reportedly turned into disbelief. Because this wasn't just about a meeting, it was about position, influence, relevance. After years of navigating public judgment, reshaping her image, and finally standing beside King Charles as queen consort, Camilla suddenly realized something chilling. She was not shaping the next chapter. And Princess Anne? She never raised her voice. She never publicly objected. She simply stopped the process in its tracks. That's her power. She doesn't argue. She acts. To understand this moment, you have to understand Anne. She has never chased cameras. She has never relied on charm to win favor. She believes in rank, service, and the brutal discipline of tradition. To her, the monarchy survives not through reinvention, but through restraint. From the earliest days of Charles and Camilla's public appearances, Anne maintained a cool, controlled distance. No warmth, no visible closeness, only protocol. While others softened, Anne remained precise. For her, crowns are not symbols of sympathy. They are burdens of responsibility. As Camilla's public profile grew, more visible speeches, more assertive roles at state events, greater presence in ceremonial decisions, something shifted. What some saw as confidence, Anne reportedly viewed as overreach. A queen consort stepping beyond symbolic support into influence. And influence in a monarchy built on invisible hierarchies is everything. There were moments, small, sharp ones. A diplomatic reception where Anne allegedly stepped in mid-conversation, smoothly redirecting protocol when Camilla appeared to lead. A subtle correction, a reminder of structure. No scene, just repositioning. Privately, Anne began speaking more frequently with Prince William. Her concerns were not emotional, they were institutional. She believed the balance of authority was drifting, that the future king needed space to define his reign without inherited shadows shaping it from behind. And then came the private meeting that changed everything. At Clarence House, behind closed doors, Prince William requested a conversation with Camilla, not as a stepson, not as family, but as the Prince of Wales preparing for the crown. He approached it calmly, respectfully. He explained that coronation planning had begun to take form, and that he needed room to shape symbolism, tone, legacy. He reportedly asked her to step back from key decisions tied directly to his future reign. That it was not an accusation. It was a boundary. Camilla smiled. But the smile, insiders say, carried dismissal. It's all symbolic tradition, she allegedly responded, brushing off the weight of the moment. To William, symbolism is not decoration. It is power. It defines eras. And something in him shifted. This is not your crown to shape. The sentence, spoken without shouting, landed like thunder in a quiet room. No explosion followed, just silence. Heavy. Final. The next day, William met privately with Princess Anne. The alignment was immediate. This was no longer discomfort. It was strategy. Camilla would be excluded from further coronation planning. No dramatic announcement. Agendas were adjusted. Correspondence rerouted. Invitations refined. The machine of monarchy recalibrated itself quietly and efficiently. The firm knows how to move without being seen. Camilla discovered the truth not through confrontation, but through omission. A coronation planning meeting at Kensington Palace, her name missing, calls unanswered, explanations vague, and then, reportedly, fury. I am queen, she is said to have declared within Clarence House walls, but being queen beside a reigning king is not not the same as shaping the future king. In anger, she confronted Charles. Doors closed. Raised voices reportedly echoed. "They cannot treat me like a guest," she allegedly insisted. Charles, husband and king, stood in the most impossible position of his reign. Defend his wife or protect the future crown embodied in his son? His silence spoke louder than words. In that silence, Camilla felt something unfamiliar. Vulnerability. For years, she had slowly rebuilt public trust, carefully managed appearances, balanced humility with presence. But this time, influence was not reclaimed through interviews or careful image work, because this was not about public opinion. It was about internal alignment. And while tension simmered, another figure stepped forward, not forcefully, not loudly, but naturally. Catherine. Where Camilla pushed, Catherine simply occupied space with calm authority. In early coronation discussions, her role was not decorative. It was essential. She contributed ideas that blended reverence for Queen Elizabeth II with modern resonance. She suggested visible roles for younger generations. She focused on connection, not control. Staff described her presence as steady, aligned, balanced with William. No resistance met her. No correction required. She didn't demand relevance. She embodied it. And as Camilla fought to hold her ground, Catherine quietly became the visible future. The contrast could not have been sharper. Camilla's exclusion was not just about one ceremony. It signaled a shift in gravitational pull within the monarchy. Influence was consolidating, not around Charles' present, but around William's future. But the story did not end there, because as pressure mounted, King Charles summoned Princess Anne for a private meeting at Windsor. He did not speak as monarch. He spoke as husband. He reportedly pleaded loyalty, redemption, fairness. "She is my wife." Anne listened. Unmoved. Her loyalty is not to comfort. It is to continuity. She reminded him, gently but firmly, that crowns are not shaped by personal devotion. They are preserved by discipline. That William represents the final bridge between tradition and a modernizing public. She did not retreat. When the meeting ended, there were no reconciliations, no softening, just a quiet understanding that a line had been drawn. And shortly after, a palace statement was released. Carefully worded, polished, vague. It emphasized support for the Prince of Wales. Ongoing coordination among senior royals. Unity. One name was noticeably absent. Camilla. In royal communication, absence is declaration. Commentators dissected the language. The focus on William. The silence around the Queen Consort. Inside palace walls, internal memos urged staff to stay on message, avoid speculation, and, most tellingly, avoid referencing Camilla in coronation matters. This was not chaos. It was recalibration. And somewhere in that recalibration, Princess Anne wrote a private letter to Charles. A rare step, calm in tone, heavy in meaning. She warned of drift, of image overtaking duty, of private relationships blurring public responsibility. She described William as the pillar capable of protecting tradition while adapting it. She urged Charles to think as king, not husband. Letting go may hurt, she implied. But survival requires sacrifice. Now, the monarchy stands at a quiet crossroads. Not one marked by scandal headlines or public feuds, but by strategic repositioning. Camilla once fought to be accepted inside the circle. Now she may be watching it close without her. The palace may have issued a calm, polished statement, but inside those ancient walls, calm was the last thing anyone felt. Because once Princess Anne refused to reverse her decision, once William drew his line, and once Charles realized his authority had limits, the monarchy entered a phase far more dangerous than open conflict. Silent restructuring. Camilla understood something critical at that moment. This wasn't a temporary misunderstanding. It wasn't a minor scheduling dispute. It was a shift in gravitational power. And in royal politics, when gravity shifts, everything realigns. For years, she had fought to climb from public villain to accepted queen consort. She endured scrutiny, judgment, whispers about the past. She rebuilt her image brick by brick, smile by smile, appearance by appearance. She mastered restraint. She learned when to speak and when to remain invisible. That strategy worked until now, because this time, invisibility wasn't chosen. It was imposed. Behind closed doors, Camilla reportedly began strategizing, not recklessly, not publicly, but carefully. Advisors floated ideas, selective visibility, carefully timed charitable engagements, subtle reminders of her standing beside the king. If she could not shape William's coronation from within the room, perhaps she could shape perception from outside it. But perception has limits when structure has already shifted. William's team moved decisively. Planning committees tightened, advisory circles narrowed, symbolic decisions, music, procession order, guest representation, visual tone were finalized without Camilla's consultation. And in monarchy language, symbolism is everything. It tells the story of who matters. Catherine's presence in those rooms only grew stronger. She wasn't pushing. She wasn't campaigning. She simply belonged. Her suggestions carried weight. Her tone carried calm confidence. She understood that modern Britain watches everything through a lens of authenticity, and she she shaped the ceremony not as spectacle, but as signal of generational change, signal of stability, signal of unity under William. Where Camilla's energy had once centered around redemption, Catherine's energy radiated inevitability. Palace staff began to notice something subtle but powerful. When William and Catherine entered planning discussions, the atmosphere felt settled, focused, strategic. They operated like a synchronized force, no ego clashes, no territorial corrections, just direction. And direction is dangerous when you're being excluded from it. Meanwhile, Charles found himself isolated in ways he never anticipated. As king, he wears the crown. But as father, he cannot override the heir's preparation. And as husband, he cannot erase his wife's humiliation. Reports suggest he attempted quiet mediation. A suggestion here, a gentle nudge there. But Anne's position remained immovable. William's resolve did not soften. Charles faced an uncomfortable truth. Succession power is psychological long before it becomes official. William may not yet be king, but the institution was already orienting around him. Camilla felt that shift most sharply. Visibility began thinning. Media briefings about coronation progress centered on William and Catherine. Discussions of legacy invoked Queen Elizabeth II's memory and the future king's modernization. Commentators noticed patterns. Analysts dissected seating speculation. And through it all, Camilla's name floated less and less in association with the event. For someone who fought decades to stand beside the crown, fading is not a small matter. Inside Clarence House, tension reportedly thickened. Staff loyalty lines blurred. Some advisors quietly aligned with the future reign. Others remained committed to the current queen consort. But even they understood the reality. History favors the next chapter. And then came another quiet blow. An internal draft of ceremonial positioning allegedly placed Catherine in a more prominent symbolic role than expected, a visual reinforcement of the coming era. While Camilla would stand beside Charles in current engagements, the coronation narrative visually elevated the Prince and Princess of Wales as the focal future. In monarchy language, visuals are prophecy. Camilla's frustration reportedly turned sharper. She had endured decades of being the outsider. She had weathered public hostility. She had waited patiently for acceptance. And now, at the very moment she believed her place was secured, the institution recalibrated without her. She confronted Charles again, insiders suggest, not with fury this time, but with something colder. Fear. Fear of erasure. Because in royal power dynamics, influence does not vanish loudly. It fades quietly until one day it is simply absent. Charles, increasingly aware of his mortality and the ticking clock of history, faced a dilemma no monarch envies. If he pushed too hard in defense of Camilla, he risked fracturing his relationship with William and destabilizing the future. If he remained silent, he risked alienating his queen. But Anne's earlier warning echoed, the crown must outlive personal devotion. And sometimes they are shaped by those who stand just outside the spotlight. Steady, unflinching, and unwilling to bend, Princess Anne drew her line. Prince William enforced it. King Charles understood it. And Queen Camilla may have just discovered that in a monarchy built on centuries of survival, even a queen consort can find herself standing on uncertain ground. The future crown is already being shaped. The question is no longer who sits beside it. The question is who truly controls its direction. Who truly controls its direction. Who truly controls its direction. Who truly controls